So last night was my 4th week teaching in Jeremiah 31. Jeremiah 31 is so deep and rich in theology. It took us 4 weeks to get through it. Now, the last part is Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 40. And this is God promising the new covenant. This is the 7th and final covenant. And Jesus fulfills all 7 covenants by fulfilling the 7th covenant. And so, of course, we had to go and look at the Last Supper, because what does Jesus say in the Last Supper? This is the new covenant in my blood for the forgiveness of sins. Now, this is where it gets very interesting. When you look at the Old Covenant, the Mosaic covenant, you're going to see that was a marriage covenant. We know it's a marriage covenant because Jeremiah chapter 3 says that God sent Israel away with a certificate of divorce. You can't divorce someone you're not married to. Now, they did not go through the wedding ceremony. They were betrothed, and in Jewish culture, the moment you get betrothed, it's kind of like being engaged. You're married, but you do not consummate the marriage, or you do not complete the wedding, we'll put it that way, until about a year later. When you look at Mary and Joseph, when Mary got pregnant with Jesus, they were betrothed, but they had not come together yet because they hadn't had the final part of the wedding. And what was Joseph going to do? He was going to quietly divorce her. So this is where God was, where Jesus was, with people in the Mosaic covenant. The new covenant is also a wedding covenant, or a marriage covenant. And in the Jewish culture back then, you would start the betrothal off by drinking a glass of wine together. And then Jesus says something very interesting. He says, I will not drink of this cup again until you are with me in my Father's kingdom. Pay attention to that. Now, this is where it gets extremely interesting. All 12 disciples drank of that cup with Jesus. Now go to John 13, and this is regarding Jesus and Judas. John 13, 27 and to 30. Then after he'd taken the morsel, Satan entered into him. Jesus said to him, what you are going to do, do quickly. Now no one at the table knew why he said this to him. Some thought that because Judas had the money bag, Jesus was telling him, buy what you need for the feast, or that he should give something to the poor. So after receiving the morsel of bread, he immediately went out, and it was night. Now this is where it gets very interesting. Verse 31. When he had gone out, meaning when Judas has left, Jesus said, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God glorified in him. When did Jesus say that? After Judas left. Now in the same stanza, in the same area, right before chapter 14, Jesus tells Peter, you're going to deny me 3 times. Then in chapter 14, it says, let your hearts not be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and take you to myself, that where I am, you may be also. Okay, so we need to put a few things together here. All 12 disciples were there for the drinking of the wine, the beginning of the betrothal. One disciple, Judas, leaves right after that. The moment after he leaves, Jesus says, now I'm glorified. And then he speaks of rapture. This is the ending of the wedding. This is where the groom comes to get his bride and take her back to the wedding house, and people come in and they celebrate the wedding feast for a week. Jesus has been spending all this time preparing the honeymoon suite, if you will. And who's not there for this talk? Judas. Which one of Jesus' 12 disciples didn't make it to heaven? Judas. Why? Because Judas betrayed Jesus. Just like in the Mosaic covenant, the Israelites betrayed Jesus. Now, notice who is here for the rapture talk. 11 of the disciples, including Peter. Peter denied Jesus, but did not betray Jesus. All 12 were there for the drinking of the wine, the beginning of the betrothal, but one wasn't there for the rapture promise. If you're saying, I want to be betrothed to Jesus, but I don't want to go to the wedding, are you focusing on Mosaic covenant, or are you focusing on New Covenant? And if you're focusing on Mosaic covenant, are you married or divorced? So I'm going to put the study in the comments. Go ahead and take a look at it. 6 minutes is not long enough to unpack this. Go watch the study.